Welcome to this explainer on the Trump administration's federal actions from June 5th through June 11th, 2026. Today, we're skipping the political spectacle and the PR spin. Instead, we're going to examine the real-world material effects of these policies. We're focusing strictly on what these actions actually do, specifically how they impact your wallet, your rights, and the working-class economy. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering enforcement, funding and labor, tensions and economic security, tech, phishing and risk, and finally, legal boundaries and accountability. Let's get right into it. Starting off with Section 1, Enforcement, Funding, and Labor, where we're looking at the scaling of coercive state capacity. And that brings us to the absolute biggest domestic story of the week, the massive immigration enforcement legislation that cleared the Senate on June 5th and the House on the 9th. We're talking about $70 billion here. That money directly funds ICE, Border Patrol, and a rapidly expanding deportation program. An injection of capital like this means a huge, immediate expansion of detention logistics, personnel, and surveillance capacity. Now, what's really striking here is the massive gap between the stated goal and the likely effect on the ground. Supporters are framing this $70 billion as a huge win for public safety and labor market protection. But when you look at the material realities, the effects are highly asymmetric. For working-class immigrant families, the agricultural sector, and construction, the downside risks are incredibly severe. We're looking at family separations, immediate labor shortages, and serious wage volatility. Honestly, an aggressive enforcement regime of this scale acts almost like a shadow tax on mixed-status and immigrant-heavy working-class communities, altering everything from local school attendance and rent stability to everyday small business revenue. Moving on to Section 2, Tensions and Economic Security. Let's look at how geopolitics actually hits your wallet. Just look at this rapid sequence of events linking foreign policy directly to your economic security. Between June 9th and 11th, the U.S. and Iran were locked in this intense escalation with active strike threats. Then, on the 11th, the president cancels the planned strikes, citing progress in negotiations. And instantly, global oil prices drop. It perfectly proves that markets price military escalation risk directly into energy costs. The underlying conflict wasn't even resolved, but the immediate market relief was absolutely undeniable. So the crucial takeaway here is that international posturing has a direct pipeline to household costs. If this conflict flares up again without a concrete, verified agreement, the immediate impact for you is higher costs at the gas pump and the grocery store. High diesel and domestic shipping expenses inevitably trickle down to make food distribution more expensive. When we talk about war powers and international conflict, we are really talking directly about working-class inflation and your monthly budget. All right, Section 3, Tech, Phishing, and Risk. This is all about how certain policies create concentrated gains for a few, but push diffuse risks onto the public. On June 5th, the administration issued National Security Presidential Memorandum 11, or NSPM 11. This directs the national security enterprise to rapidly accelerate AI adoption. Basically, it funnels federal dollars straight upward to elite AI vendors, cloud providers, and defense contractors. Now, sure, the memo says AI shouldn't be used for unauthorized surveillance, but the reality of implementing that is incredibly messy. The public is the one left absorbing all the risks here: potential surveillance overreach, terrifying autonomy errors in weapons systems, and massive procurement waste. And since these are classified systems run by private vendors, it's practically impossible for the public to inspect or audit these risks in real time. We're actually seeing a really similar structure of risk and reward in the June 11th proclamation on Pacific commercial fishing. The administration reopened parts of the Mariana Trench and other marine monuments to U.S.-flagged commercial vessels. The winners here are super easy to identify: specific commercial vessel owners, their crews, and regional fishing businesses. But the risks? They're dispersed across the public. We're talking marine biodiversity loss, habitat stress, and weakening the precedent for protected areas. The administration claims existing fisheries laws are enough to handle it, but without strict enforcement, the default failure mode is just overfishing and serious ecological damage. Now, for a direct contrast, let's look at a policy passed on June 9th that actually offers genuine benefits for workers. This is S2393, authorizing a major VA facility in St. Louis. This is exactly the kind of tangible public service investment that aids working-class households. It brings highly concrete benefits to a specific area: better healthcare access for local veterans, direct construction jobs, and real facility modernization. Interestingly, on that exact same day, a bill was signed requiring a GAO report on esophageal cancer. While a report obviously doesn't treat patients today, it's a real step toward finding gaps in medical care. It's a stark contrast to policies that just write checks to elite tech vendors. That brings us to Section 4, Legal Boundaries and Accountability. We're looking at institutional pushback on executive power. We're tracking a couple of major legal bottlenecks from this week. First, those Iran strike threats we just talked about. The core concern is whether U.S. hostilities actually have congressional authorization. Both the House and Senate are advancing war powers resolutions, putting Congress and the administration in a direct constitutional tug-of-war over war authority. Second, that Pacific Fishing Proclamation, it modifies protections issued under the Antiquities Act. That opens the door to severe litigation risk from conservation groups, who are going to argue the president literally cannot materially weaken prior monument protections without Congress stepping in. And we're seeing aggressive checks on executive branch control in the courts, too. A federal judge just extended an indefinite block on the administration's proposed $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund. Even though the government claimed it was going to abandon the plan, the judge demanded a legally binding sworn declaration formally ending it. Remember, this fund started from a lawsuit over IRS tax return leaks, making it this tangled web of personal grievances, taxpayer money, and really high corruption risk. Basically, verbal assurances weren't cutting it. The judiciary demanded binding legal proof. Let's wrap things up with our conclusion: symbolic versus material governance. On June 11th, a ceremonial proclamation was issued celebrating the 75th anniversary of the White House Navy mess. Look, ceremonial proclamations are a totally normal part of any presidency. They aren't inherently harmful. But public-facing spectacles like this eat up valuable institutional time, media space, and political attention. And they offer absolutely zero working-class policy effect. The ultimate takeaway from analyzing this week's actions is the concept of opportunity cost. When the federal government prioritizes symbolic actions or policies that just consolidate wealth among elite contractors, it diverts crucial focus away from the actual material needs of regular Americans. Real governance requires relentless scrutiny on the big things: securing healthcare access, ensuring living wages, managing energy prices, and protecting civil rights. The true cost of leadership isn't just measured by the policies that get signed, but by the vital working-class priorities that are left waiting in the margins.